It was a regular Tuesday morning when I learned my boyfriend of 3 years had been living a double life. I was standing in my kitchen with a cup of coffee, scrolling through my phone like I did every morning. Nothing unusual. Just checking emails, texting my best friend Monica about our weekend plans, the typical routine. Nathan had left for work an hour earlier. He'd kissed me goodbye and told me he'd probably be working late at the office again. He was always working late these days. Always at the tech company, always on some new project. We'd recently moved in together about 4 months prior, and I thought we were heading toward that next chapter. Engagement. Maybe eventually marriage. He'd even started talking about it. So I was genuinely happy. Or at least I thought I was. I opened the Find My app, something we'd set up together a year ago as a safety measure. So we'd always know where the other person was, just in case. It seemed romantic at the time. Check in on each other. Nothing controlling about it, right? I typed in Nathan's contact. And that's when everything stopped making sense. His location wasn't at Tech Venture Solutions, the downtown office where he worked. It wasn't anywhere near downtown. According to the app, Nathan's phone was sitting 6 blocks away from his office building, parked at an apartment complex on the opposite side of the city. An unfamiliar address I'd never seen before. The timestamp showed his location had been there for about 2 hours already. I stared at that little blue dot on the map. Refreshed it. Same thing. Still there. 1847, Riverside Drive, apartment 412. My coffee mug fell out of my hand. It shattered on the tile floor, and I barely noticed the pieces spreading across the kitchen. My brain was trying to do math that didn't add up. The office. Work. Late nights. All of it suddenly adding up to something else entirely. I wasn't stupid. I knew what an apartment complex meant. I knew what 2 hours at a residential address meant while he told me he was at the office. I opened his location history and scrolled back. Tuesday nights. 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Same address. Thursday afternoons. 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Same address. Going back weeks. Months, actually. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork, Nathan had been at this apartment. And every single time, he'd told me he was working late. Every excuse, every canceled dinner plan, every apology for another late night, all centered on the office. The shock came first. That numb, can't-breathe kind of shock where everything feels unreal. Then came the anger. The kind that makes your hands shake even though you're standing completely still. And then, beneath all of that, came something else. Something cold and calculated. I didn't confront him immediately. That's what most people do, right? They lose it. They call the person, scream about what they found, demand explanations. But I'm not most people. I'm a financial advisor by profession. I spend my days analyzing data, identifying patterns, finding discrepancies that don't add up. And my gut told me that if I confronted Nathan now, before I understood the full picture, he'd have time to cover his tracks, to delete things, to prepare his lies. So instead, I did what I do best. I started documenting. I pulled up our joint credit card statement. I'd had access to it for months as part of our financial planning, or so I'd thought. And that's when I started seeing things. Marriott charges. Dozens of them. All in different dates, all on Tuesday and Thursday nights, all around the same geographic area. The charges were listed vaguely as business travel, but the amounts were specific. $1,847. $1,923. $2,100. All hotel-sized charges. All consistent. Then I found the jewelry store. Jewels, apparently, an upscale place downtown. A $1,400 charge on Valentine's Day. The same day Nathan had given me a $200 gift card. The math didn't work anymore. The cash withdrawals started making sense too. Hundreds of dollars at a time from ATMs, spread throughout the month. Maybe 20, 30 times a year, always a few hundred each. I'd never thought much about it before. He said it was for miscellaneous work expenses, and I trusted him enough not to question it. I did the math. Marriott charges alone totaled around $18,000 over 8 months. Add the jewelry. Add the cash. Add the restaurants I found that weren't on the credit card at all. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a system. A plan he'd executed every week like clockwork. I closed my laptop and sat back. The coffee from my shattered mug had dried on the floor in an abstract pattern that almost looked pretty if you didn't know what it represented. Everything I thought I knew about Nathan, about us, suddenly felt like a lie built on a lie. I didn't cry. I didn't call him. I didn't call Monica, not yet. Instead, I did what made sense to me. I called a lawyer. The attorney I found specialized in divorce cases. She was straightforward, efficient, and didn't judge me for calling her on a Tuesday morning without tears in my voice. She listened to what I'd found and told me exactly what I needed to do. Document everything, she said. Don't confront him yet. That's a mistake people make. Get a complete picture first. Secure your assets. Know your rights. Then you control the narrative. I appreciated that she didn't tell me to work it out or give him the benefit of the doubt. She just gave me a roadmap. Over the next 3 weeks, I became obsessive in a way that was probably unhealthy, but absolutely necessary. I printed every credit card statement for the past year. I documented every GPS location ping Nathan had at that apartment address. I created a spreadsheet, an actual, detailed spreadsheet, that would have made my clients proud if they ever saw it. Nathan wasn't just visiting that apartment building on those days. He was spending the night. Multiple nights. The hotel charges corresponded exactly with the times his location pinged from that address. He wasn't at a client meeting. He wasn't working late. He was at a residential apartment belonging to someone at his work. So I did a reverse address lookup. It took me approximately 4 minutes. The apartment was leased to someone named Samantha Chen. I'd met Samantha Chen at a company Christmas party about 6 months ago. She was a UX designer at Nathan's firm. She seemed nice enough. She'd hugged me when we met. We'd made small talk about the office and the holiday drinks and whether the shrimp appetizers were actually fresh. She'd laughed at my jokes. And the whole time, she was sleeping with my boyfriend. I called Monica that night. I met her at our favorite coffee shop, the one we'd been going to for years, the place where we'd solved every problem in both of our lives. I brought my laptop and my spreadsheet and I laid out everything. The GPS data. The credit card charges. The jewelry store transaction on Valentine's Day. The pattern of it all. Monica's reaction was exactly what I needed. No crying. No, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Just a cold, calculated anger on my behalf. She was furious. She was also practical. What do you want to do? She asked. That was the question, wasn't it? I could confront him. Demand an explanation. Get an empty apology and maybe a temporary separation while he figured out his life. But that wasn't good enough for me. He'd humiliated me systematically for 8 months. He'd spent money we shared on hotel rooms and jewelry for another woman. He'd looked me in the eye every single day and lied about where he'd been. So I called my attorney back and told her I wanted to file for divorce. But first, I wanted to understand the financial implications. I wanted to know my options. I wanted to know what leverage I had. She walked me through it. As a financial advisor with access to our joint accounts, I had every right to document spending patterns. I had every right to secure our assets. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I was protecting myself. Strategically. There's something else, I told her. I think he submitted false expense reports at work. I'd noticed it while going through the credit card statements. Charges that should have been personal expenses labeled as business entertainment. Hotels marked as client dinners. It was fraud. Small fraud, maybe, but fraud. Do you have documentation? She asked. I did. I'd already put it together. It was tidy. It was organized. It was a complete timeline of how Nathan had systematically deceived both me and his employer. That's leverage, she said simply. But we use it strategically. Not as a weapon, as leverage. I spent the next week getting my ducks in a row. I moved significant savings to a separate account in my name only, something the lawyer advised was completely legal and necessary for self-protection. I documented all evidence. I consulted with a second attorney on the employment fraud angle. And I made a decision. Nathan was going to face real consequences. Not just a divorce. Not just a split of assets. Real, professional, devastating consequences that would follow him for years. He just didn't know it yet. The next 2 weeks were about patience. Patience and precision. I still lived with Nathan. I still smiled at him. I still played the role of the girlfriend who believed he was staying late at the office. I watched him leave on Tuesday evenings around 7 p.m., giving himself time to drive to the opposite side of the city. I watched him come home around 2 a.m. smelling like hotel soap and cologne that wasn't his regular scent. I said nothing. It took every ounce of strength I had to act normal. But I'm good under pressure. I'm the person who keeps her cool when everything's falling apart. I'm the person who thinks 3 steps ahead while everyone else is panicking about step 1. My attorney and I built the case methodically. First, the personal angle. I had everything I needed for the divorce: proof of infidelity, proof of financial deception, proof that our relationship was over. Combined with the expense report fraud, my legal position was incredibly strong. A judge would see a man who'd lied to both his wife and his employer, who'd spent marital assets on an affair, who'd committed fraud at his workplace. Second, the professional angle. I documented the expense report fraud in a clean, professional format. The kind of format that looks like it came from a compliance audit, not from a scorned girlfriend. The kind of documentation that HR departments have to take seriously. Here's where it got interesting. I scheduled a call with Tech Venture Solutions Finance and Compliance Department. I didn't go through Nathan. I went through proper channels. I was, after all, someone with financial expertise who'd discovered a potential accounting irregularity. It was my civic duty to report it, right? My attorney reviewed everything before I made that call. She wanted to make sure my legal position was airtight, that I couldn't be accused of personal vendetta because I was reporting legitimate fraud through legitimate channels. "This is going to destroy him," she said quietly before the call. "I know," I said. And I meant it. I also started the divorce process. Papers were drawn up. They were sitting on my attorney's desk, ready to be filed. I had a plan for when and how I'd deliver them, but first I wanted to see how the professional angle played out. I wanted Nathan to understand that this wasn't just about us. This was about consequences that extended into every corner of his life. The night before the confrontation, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was nervous or second-guessing myself, but because I was angry. Genuinely, deeply angry in a way that kept me awake and alert and ready. I thought about him coming home that night smelling like another woman. I thought about the Valentine's Day jewelry he'd bought for her while claiming to barely have time for me. I thought about how many times he'd kissed me and lied to my face. How many evenings I'd spent alone waiting for him while he was building a whole other relationship across the city. Around 3 a.m., I got up and organized all my documentation one final time. The GPS data, the credit card statements, the jewelry store receipt, the hotel charges, the expense reports. Everything was highlighted, dated, organized with meticulous detail. I made my plan for the confrontation. It would happen at my attorney's office. I would have legal representation present. Nathan would have to bring his own attorney or arrive unprepared. I would present the evidence, first the personal, then the professional. And I would watch him understand, piece by piece, that his entire world was about to collapse. By 4 a.m., I felt ready. I'd spent weeks gathering evidence, weeks consulting attorneys, weeks planning this moment with precision. Some people might call it revenge. I called it strategy. I called it justice. And I was absolutely going to enjoy watching his face when he realized he'd lost everything. The next morning, I told Nathan we needed to meet with my attorney. I didn't give him details. I just said it was important. He thought we were discussing our house or talking about getting married. How wrong he was. The law office was on the 18th floor of a downtown building with floor-to-ceiling windows. My attorney, Margaret Chin, was waiting in her office. Professional. Calm. The kind of woman who'd seen this situation 100 times and treated it like the business it was. Nathan arrived 40 minutes later with his own attorney, a guy named Michael Torres, who clearly had no idea what was coming. Nathan looked nervous but resigned. Probably thought we were discussing divorce terms in a civilized way. Maybe he hoped we could work things out. He had no idea. I sat across from Nathan at the conference table with Margaret on my right and the city skyline behind us. He sat with Michael on his left, looking confused about why he needed a lawyer for this. "We're here because my client has discovered some serious issues in the marriage," Margaret started. Professional. Matter of fact. Issues that have significant legal and financial implications. Nathan's face went carefully blank. "What kind of issues?" I opened my laptop and turned it around so he could see. GPS data. The last 6 months of location history showing him at apartment 412 on Riverside Drive every Tuesday and Thursday. The map had little blue dots marking each visit. Dozens of them. "You want to explain these?" I asked. My voice was perfectly calm. Perfectly controlled. Like I was asking about a client's investment portfolio. Nathan's face went white. Actually white. His jaw clenched and he started to say something, then stopped. He started. Derek's defense mechanism kicked in. "You went through my private things. Your hidden burner phone?" I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I did. When you hide a second phone in your gym bag, that's not privacy. That's evidence." "This is crazy," Derek said, trying a different angle. "You're overreacting." "Am I?" I leaned forward. "Let's talk about overreacting. Let's talk about how you used your key card to access the gym after hours 34 times. Let's talk about how Jessica's member profile shows corresponding guest access every single time." His face went white again. "Yeah," I said. "I pulled the logs. Perks of being senior staff. I can access that stuff." Jessica whispered, "You went to the gym?" "Oh, honey," I said, my voice dripping with false sympathy. "You thought this was just about you two breaking my heart?" "No. See, Derek broke policy. Multiple policies." Derek's voice cracked. "Maya, please. Trainer-client relationships are prohibited," I continued. "Unauthorized after-hours facility use is prohibited. And fun fact, 2 other members have informally complained about you being too friendly. I'm not even your first ethical violation. Just your stupidest one." "What did you do?" Derek asked, and I heard the panic setting in. "I did what any concerned employee would do," I said. "I reported it to Sarah." The room went silent. "You told Sarah?" Derek's voice was barely a whisper. "I told Sarah that I noticed concerning patterns in facility usage. That I was worried about liability. That there were potential policy violations. I presented evidence. Scheduling reports. Access logs. Member complaints." "You ruined my career," Derek breathed. "No," I said sharply. "You ruined your career when you decided to screw around with a client in our workplace." "I just documented it." Jessica finally spoke up. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." I turned to her. "Never meant for it to happen?" "Jessica, you asked me for relationship advice. About him. You sat across from me at brunch and asked me how to handle complicated feelings for someone unavailable. That was him." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "You looked me in the eye," I continued, "and asked me if you should pursue someone even though it might hurt people. And I told you, because I'm a good friend, that if it hurt people, it wasn't worth it. Remember that?" She sobbed. "I remember. And then you went and slept with my boyfriend anyway." "It just happened," she tried weakly. "It just happened? Dozens of coordinated schedules just happened? Months of hotel rooms just happened? You planning around my work schedule just happened." I stood up. "No. You made choices. Both of you made choices. And now you get to deal with the consequences." Derek stood too. "What do you want? An apology?" "I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear?" "I don't want your apology," I said. "I want you out of this apartment by Friday. I already talked to the landlord. I'm breaking the lease. You can stay and take over full rent, or you can leave too." "I don't care. I can't afford full rent." "Not my problem," I said. "You should have thought about that before spending $800 on hotels." "And what about my job?" he asked desperately. "What about it?" I smiled. "That's between you and Sarah now. But if I were you, I'd start updating my resume." Jessica stood up. "Maya, please. Can we just talk about this?" "Talk about what, Jessica?" "About how you're a terrible person. About how you threw away 7 years of friendship." "No thanks. I'm good." "Where do we go from here?" she asked weakly. "We don't go anywhere," I said. "You're cut out. Both of you. You don't get to be in my life anymore." I grabbed my keys and my phone. I'm staying at my sister's tonight. Derek, start packing. Jessica, see yourself out. And just so we're clear, everyone's going to know. Your gym membership is probably getting revoked. Our friend group is going to hear exactly what happened. You wanted him? Congratulations. You can have what's left of him after Sarah's done. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Derek? Sarah's meeting with you Monday morning at 9. I'd show up on time. Not that it'll help. I left them sitting there in silence. The look on their faces was worth every moment of planning. The next few days were a blur of Derek's increasingly desperate phone calls and texts. Maya, please, we need to talk. This is insane. You're ruining my life. Can we please just talk in person? I blocked him after saving all the messages. My sister, the paralegal, drafted a cease and desist letter. If he kept contacting me, I'd file for a restraining order. He stopped calling after that. Jessica tried too. Long rambling text messages about how sorry she was, how she never meant to hurt me, how their connection was so strong, but she chose our friendship. Past tense. Chose. Like it was already over. I blocked her too. On Monday, Derek showed up at the gym at 8:55 a.m. I wasn't there. I'd taken a personal day. But I heard about it from 3 different people. Sarah called him into her office. Presented the evidence. He tried to deny it. Then tried to justify it. Then tried to blame me for invading his privacy. Sarah didn't care. She fired him on the spot. Termination for cause. Policy violations. Immediate surrender of his key card. By 10 a.m., his locker was emptied and he was escorted out by Mike, our facility manager. The gym gossip network moved fast. By noon, every instructor and half the members knew some version of what happened. The official story was just Derek no longer works here, but everyone filled in the blanks. Derek's clients got redistributed to other trainers. A couple of them asked what happened. Management stayed professional, staffing changes, but word spread anyway. Within a week, Derek was applying to other gyms. He called me from a different number I hadn't blocked yet, asking me to tell Sarah to give him a better reference. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. You want me to help you? After everything. I need a job, Maya. You should have thought about that before using our workplace to cheat on me. I hung up and blocked that number too. What happened over the next 6 months was nothing short of systematic destruction. Not the kind I orchestrated directly, just the natural consequences of truth finally catching up to lies. Nathan called my phone 47 times in the first 24 hours after the confrontation. Texts progressed from "we need to talk" to "I'm sorry" to desperate. I didn't answer. My attorney sent a cease contact letter that he seemed to finally understand was not optional. By the end of that week, TechVenture Solutions' compliance department had launched a formal investigation into his expense reports. By week 2, they'd discovered it was worse than the fraud I'd reported. He'd been falsifying expenses for over 2 years, not just 8 months. The investigation pulled in finance, HR, and potentially their legal department. Nathan was placed on administrative leave pending investigation results by the end of week 1. By week 2, TechVenture offered him a deal: resign immediately or be terminated for cause with the fraud investigation documented on his employment record. He resigned. Samantha, the affair partner, was still employed, but her position was suddenly eliminated due to workplace restructuring. HR essentially fired her quietly, protecting themselves from any potential lawsuit while making their point clear. She was tainted by association. The investigation had cleared her of actual fraud, but she was still connected to the mess Nathan had created. The divorce finalized about 4 months later. The numbers were in my favor. I kept the house. Kept it completely. Worth around $485,000 with about $310,000 remaining on the mortgage. Nathan walked away from it entirely. He received about $51,500 from Asset Division, basically his 401k split fairly plus some cash. I received around $155,500 in assets from the settlement, kept the house, and he was ordered to pay $2,500 monthly in spousal support for 3 years or until he was employed at comparable salary. That last part was probably going to be a problem for him. No tech company in the region would touch him. The fraud investigation, even though it didn't result in criminal charges, TechVenture decided it was easier to let him go quietly than pursue it publicly, was now on his employment record. Background checks would show the investigation. Industry people talk. Nobody wanted to hire the guy who defrauded his employer. 6 months after the confrontation, here's where we both ended up. I was promoted to managing director at my firm. The promotion came through 2 months after the divorce finalized. My boss told me I demonstrated exceptional judgment and integrity during a difficult personal situation. That impressed him more than I would have expected. I got a $50,000 salary increase, a year-end bonus, and offers from 2 other firms that I politely declined. I renovated the house. Completely transformed the master bedroom so it felt like mine, not ours. Updated the kitchen. Planted new gardens. Made it into the space I actually wanted to live in, not the space I shared with someone who was lying to me constantly. My savings account now held about $125,000. I was sleeping 8 hours a night. I was laughing again without that stress tension in my shoulders. Nathan was working as a contract data analyst at a small consulting firm making around $42,000 annually, down from $145,000. He was renting a studio apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. He was still making the support payments, though he'd missed one and my attorney had to send him a letter about that. His credit cards were maxed out. His parents were disappointed. His social circle had essentially evaporated. Last I heard, he was still single. No one wanted to date the guy who defrauded his employer and cheated on his girlfriend. Turns out there's a reputation that follows you when you do something like that. People talk. They Google you. They find the story. Looking back now, I don't regret any of it. Not a single moment. Some people might call it revenge. I call it justice. I call it what happens when you systematically lie to someone who knows how to document the truth. Best decision I ever made.